Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Beach Report. We're here with Dave Borman again, and this time we're going to talk about the coming financial end of the coming, what would we call this? The end of the financial system
happening.
Or the happening,
Climax. New beginning, or however you want to.
Whatever's going to happen. We can tell that a lot of things are now happening, not just in our government, which we see a lot of craziness there, but we know that there are rumblings in our financial system. And there's so many things that you might be uneasy about, thinking that the dollar is about to self-destruct, and it is. But we want to tell you not to be afraid of that.
It's actually a good thing, ultimately.
Dave's going to explain. What does it mean that the dollar collapsing is good?
Well, the dollar, as if you'd seen any of our other broadcasts together, the dollar is an instrument of debt. Debt is an instrument of enslavement,
right?
The way it's been used. We're coming to the end of debt. We're coming to the end of an era of financial enslavement. And that's a really, really, really good thing. So basically, Jill and I were talking about it earlier, we're getting to the point where money no longer has to be the focus of our lives, or we're going to die, or end up on the street, or get up every morning and go into some job we can't stand doing because we weren't called to do it. Hopefully we can all find our places under heaven, and the place where the Lord intends us to labor.
Because it's biblical. This is biblical.
I love my job. It's grueling. It's dirty. It's nasty. I'm regularly minor injured. It's dusty. It's itchy. Sometimes I get chemical burns. Could even last for days. But I love my job.
What is your job? Tell everybody.
I was made to do it. I'm a boat builder. You've got to be a glutton for punishment to be a boat builder. And it keeps me healthy, believe it or not. And it's what I'm called to do.
It's your path.
Yeah, well, Noah was called to be a boat builder. Most people don't realize we're all descended from boat builders.
Well, I don't know if I could build a boat, but I could certainly write about building a boat, because I know the Lord also gave me gifts, not to build boats, but to write and to be a communicator.
Jill is obviously a scribe.
Yes, I'm a scribe.
Well, I can officially declare it now. Jill is a kingdom scribe. Literally, that's what she's appointed to. Which, by the way, that was a special office.
Wow.
In ancient Israel. Yes. It was, the scribes were a particular subset of the Levitical priests, and they didn't even own their own homes. They were.
That sounds familiar. Well, that's another thing.
You have a home everywhere.
I do. That's something else that we've been talking about, is that both of us have lived our lives walking in faith, and more now for me than ever before. I'm really walking in faith. I am not expecting anything other than whatever God tells me to do. But that also means that, no, I don't have one home that I live in. I have many homes that I live in. I'm welcomed all over the place. I don't belong in one place because I belong everywhere. And I'm living with that, with the knowledge. I would never say that I'm homeless, even though technically that's might be what you would call it. But I'm not homeless. I always have a roof over my head, and the Lord always provides for me because I'm following His path and I'm faithful.
Well, that's the key, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today was homes. What a home is, what a home is supposed to be. A home is supposed to be a place of peace, a place of rest, a place where we can be with family or friends.
And security. Exactly.
And so part of what, both in Jill and my life, we get a little bit of a heads up as from a prophetic perspective, from a get ready perspective, from sounding the trumpets to heads up perspective. We're allowed to live in advance a little taste of the awesomeness that's coming for everybody. Now, I actually lost my home a couple years back. to black mold. I'd been there, beautiful little home on the river, and I actually get claustrophobic if I'm too far from the sea.
I know how that feels.
as a boat builder or whatever, yet I'm in the middle of a multi-million-dollar boat build, and the Lord's kept me going no matter what. And that's how I've lived my life. It's what I'm called to. It's what I'm comfortable in. It's what I'm perfectly at peace, knowing that even though I can't always, as much of an engineering mind as I've been gifted with, I can't always map out every little jot and tittle from here on out for the next 36 months. But I can tell you that as long as I remain his, I totally trust the Father.
It's already been mapped out. Our lives have
Exactly.
already been written.
Exactly.
And we don't have to really struggle or do anything than follow the path that was already laid out for us by the Lord, who knew us before we were born. And what Dave and I have been talking about and has written about us. And we are his family and we belong in his life. So he knows what to do with us. And you have to trust that he knows what to do with you.
And that's not to say that we don't make preparations, as we're told.
Right.
But the thing is, these preparations, they're not made, and they should never be made from a place of fear,
Right.
Nor even uncertainty, but more like a farmer who knows the season coming, who understands the seed that he's planting, who knows the path that he's chosen. Like Proverbs says, we choose the path. But God, our Father in heaven, in our minds, in our thoughts, as we receive from him, he promised to direct our every little step. And even if we screw up, he's promised to turn that around for our good too. So we can look at this on a macro scale economically, that pretty much all the world's fiat currencies, those are man's money. Men created this. It's not even paper anymore.
It's the Babylonian system.
It's the Babylonian debt slave system.
Debt slave system.
For all of us, nations all over the world have been under this thing for the last several thousand years, and that's about to end. And that is a really good thing.
This is super exciting.
Now, there's a lot of implications here. Now, part of that is the tighter we're all wound up on the present system. That's unfortunately the same degree we're going to feel some pain when the old system is ripped away from us, and the beauty of God's system, which by the way is, and we've brought it up in each of our interviews, Haggai 2:8, where God said his idea for our money is gold and silver, which if you're in the United States, actually it doesn't matter where you are in the world, it's understood ubiquitously, nation by nation by nation, BRICS nations. In the U.S. Constitution, gold and silver are the only authorized money. Now that doesn't mean, and this will probably work out this way, that there won't be some sort of blockchain representation of the actual physical gold and silver. And if you go back and watch our last interview, I've seen the patents. The U.S. Post Office actually has a patent, and indeed prior to the Federal Reserve debt system, where there pretty much isn't a single dollar issued by the Federal Reserve debt system in the United States since 1913.
Wow.
That hasn't been issued as an instrument of debt with interest attached.
Yep.
Compounded interest attached, which obviously results in what so many of us think is normal, anything but normal. It is not normal to buy a house and then have to pay 3, 4, 5 times the purchase price, never even, in most cases, never even paying it off, never even possible to pay off before
it's so
you die.
Unfair. Yeah.
It's worse than unfair. It's literally modern day slavery.
Yes,
but
is.
Even worse than that, you can't even, half of us aren't even aware the chains are actually there. What the heck is nagging me? Why am I so driven? Why am I arguing with my spouse? Why why are these pressures on to never stop slaving until the moment I die? That's the only relief I'm going to get. Not supposed to be that way.
No.
And that system is disappearing. It's going to disappear whether God takes it away or not. It's collapsing under its own weight. It's literally...
Right, it was not built to last.
It's literally a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Now, we've had one of the longest lasting ones ever. It's gone on just over 100 years now, since 1913.
Wow.
Including, and by the way, even the IRS, that's going away too. There's like number one concern to most people, especially around this time of year, is what the heck do I do? We are not supposed to be worried about that. When Jesus said, render unto Caesar those things that are Caesar, basically he was saying, what are you even worried about that for? Your Father in heaven is your provider. I'm not saying quit paying your taxes or whatever it is you're called to do, or however it is you make your money. Maybe if you don't pay your taxes, they unless you've made some other arrangements, you're in trouble. But what I am saying is that the Lord is bringing a better system, where instead of taxes that we're gonna harass you till you die, if you don't pay up more and more and more, the Lord says, I love a cheerful giver. Throughout much of ancient Israel, the tax system, there was about a 10% flat tax. And I've sat down with, who was that? It was Congressman Jack Kemp. It was congressman a couple years back. I was elected youngest ever senior vice president of my party in Maryland, conservative party. There actually weren't very many of us, so it wasn't very difficult. It was either Dick Armey or Dan Archer. I remember we were having a discussion that there's no reason why the taxes can't be filed on a 3x5 card, and to this day, actually written into the law, it's a voluntary system.
Yes, the taxes aren't even legal. What they're doing to us is illegal. It's not right what they're doing. Yes, it is, totally.
So, because our tax system was actually modeled on, the original tax system was actually modeled on ancient Israel. And indeed, Mr. T, while he was in office, he began shifting most of the federal government's tax collections to duty on foreign imported goods, which will cause massive industrial boom inside the United States. So we become a producer nation again instead of a consumer nation living off of debt. And
didn't Trump also bring us back onto the gold system? Are we on it now?
Well, there's rumors to that effect, and certainly the provisions are in place right now. They were never removed. When the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913, by the way, by a tiny fraction of Congress during Christmas holiday, if you were to bribe that way,
they always do it under the darkness and the weekend, and nobody's looking.
Yeah, well, nobody ever repealed the constitutional definition of our money, which is gold and silver.
Wow.
And Mr. Trump's many times hinted that yes, we're going back there. Gold and silver are good. He's even publicly made a spectacle of happily being paid rent in a couple of chunks of gold. On one of his penthouses, a fellow billionaire.
Wow.
Couldn't break loose enough cash for probably $50,000, $100,000 a month. Mind if I drop a few nuggets of gold on you?
Thank you.
Yeah, and we mentioned this, as I recall, last interview, 1963. When was President Kennedy assassinated?
That was 64. I think.
64, okay.
I think. I wasn't born yet, so I know it was before.
Well, 65. I was 4 years old.
Okay, well then.
Anyway, so 10 days before President Kennedy was assassinated, he signed Executive Order 0001, if I remember right.
Wow.
It was 1-1. Anyway, and what that was to reinstate National Silver Bond. So basically, it was to reinstate silver as our money standard nationwide. So you could buy a silver bond and then base your paper money on actual physical silver that the Treasury Department used to own.
Promissory notes, they called it, right?
Yeah, but these were actual promissory notes on actual physical silver.
The real things, unlike what we have today,
we're
which
not
is
talking. We're not talking about ETFs. Those
right.
are leveraged like 3 to 500 to 1. That's been proven that that's how they've been manipulating the price of silver. No longer a conspiracy theory. It's actually fact. It was proven actually during Mr. T's administration. J.P. Morgan had the ball at the time as far as chief silver manipulator. They were fined over almost $1 billion. It was $900 million.
Wow.
Several of their chief traders in the silver markets went to jail for spoofing the price of silver. What it was is a revolving short, where simply what it is they bet so much fake money that the price of the real money would be forced down in terms of the fake money.
So in other words, silver is worth a lot more than we think it is, right?
Oh, it is.
Like a lot more.
And it's not our idea, it's God's idea. Haggai 2 is talking about the glory of the latter house. The glory of the latter house means that's his people, his church, and as far as our understanding goes, in its second and its basically now form was going to be more amazing than it ever was while Jesus was here, or even during the first century experience of believers. The miracles, the healing, the laying on of hands, and poof, my God, where'd your cancer go? Lord, I need $1 million, or in my case, I need a lot more than $1 million. It's just my job. I need some big resources in the multi millions to finish what I'm in the middle of right now, actually, and pushing through on faith, working with whatever I have, knowing the Lord's going to provide the rest, as He has my whole life, and these amazing things He's called me to do.
You're not gonna get discouraged because you need all this money. In fact, you're gonna be like, "When's it coming?" You're like, it is.
So I'm getting ready for it, and I do know He gives me a heads up on some of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Literally, it's a prophetic bent. For example. My father first began explaining to me when I was 12 what gold and silver were all about, what real money was, as described in Haggai 2:8 in the Bible. Why he was buying at the time, I wouldn't suggest buying them now, but at the time he was buying Swiss francs. Dad, why are you doing that? My brothers and sisters thought he was nuts. Dad's saving up dirty money in torn pillowcases, and he's got it in the closet. No. He's crazy. No, he wasn't. That was early 70s. Silver, I think, went from $2 to $50 not too long after that, 1980, I believe, just a couple years later. So it went up 25 times over. We're going to see a heck of a lot more than that soon. For example, U.S. college students in Weimar, Germany, late 1920s. Their parents would send them, say, I don't know if they were doing wiring of funds at the time and then settle up later as far as the physical gold or silver goes, but they would live on, say, a single gold coin each month, maybe a $20 gold piece. Well, during and shortly after the Weimar Germany inflationary period, and this has happened about 4,300 times in recorded financial history, those college students were able to buy the nicest mansion in Berlin for the single gold coin that their parents were sending them each month to live on. move out of their dorms, and I don't know, maybe that was the birth of the frat houses. But I mean, they have
That's a good one. So, Dave, do
mansions.
do you think that it is smart for people to now start buying gold and silver coins? Is that what you are advising people to do, or would you advise people to do that?
Well, I can only tell you that that's what I'm called to do, and I know why I'm doing it. I'm not
you certainly can't lose money by doing that. That's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah,
like it's a win-win. It's got to be, right?
I don't see how it can possibly go down, because see, it's not so much that the gold and silver are going up, although it is like trying to hold a inflated beach ball down below the water. The harder you press it, the deeper it goes, the faster and higher it's going to fly once it flies back out again.
Woohoo!
That's what both silver and gold are doing. Silver will be on steroids just because it's been manipulated worse for about 175 years now.
Well, and silver's used in everything. Like, it is such a precious, it's a precious metal in that it's precious, and it's used in, like, I could look around and see like 5 things made of silver
and
right
it's
in front
not,
of my face.
It's not just used in pretty much every facet of modern day life. It's used
in our bodies too.
Yeah,
colloidal silver and everything.
Yeah, I taught myself how to make my own colloidal silver, so that's a natural antibiotic. Used to garden with it every morning. I just haven't gotten around to it lately. I have other things.
Okay, I want some of that too.
But well, it's really easy to make, actually.
How do you make colloidal silver?
Yeah. Just little electricity. But plus I have solar panels. My solar panels, I discovered, have about 2 ounces of silver in them each. But there's only around 800 million ounces a year mined. The federal government, during the Manhattan Project, had around 1 billion and a quarter, maybe 1.5 billion ounces. They went into the calutrons. The Treasury Department loaned them to the Department of Energy for building the calutrons.
What's a calutron?
It's a uranium refining machine that refines raw uranium ore in order to make nuclear power plant fuel or weapons-grade uranium for nuclear weapons, nuclear missiles.
Right.
It took a massive amount of silver to do that. Pretty much the entire U.S. supply, which it's conjecture. We think that was where the 1 billion ounces that J.P. Morgan had one time came from, which they inherited from Bear Stearns, which was what put Bear Stearns under. Bear Stearns had the hot potato at the time to manipulate the silver price. I mean, this goes all the way back to the Opium Wars in China. The Europeans were buying up every Asian, Chinese luxury item they could get, the silks, the teas, the spices. But all the evil bankers, Babylonian money manager bankers, realized...
Money changers.
Yeah, they were the same guys who Jesus kicked the tables over, by the way, literally kicked their asses. And he used some words which I'm fully capable of, but only in distinct situations that go way beyond the worst that I could even think of at the time for the hearers that heard Jesus shouting those things at them. So don't ever say...
Because it's evil, to take advantage of people. We are literally the only creatures on earth that have to pay for our existence. That's crazy and wrong.
The money changers at the time, it hasn't changed.
No, it hasn't.
A bit, by the way.
Nope.
They were literally selling tickets to heaven. And here, if you buy my offerings with your silver and or your gold, depending on how wealthy you are, here's your ticket to heaven. And that's what he kicked their asses out of. So in our day, we're forced to slave the average person for most of us our entire lives just to live, let alone get to heaven. We're too busy trying to survive, most of us, to even think about getting to heaven. We're not supposed to worry about getting to heaven. We're supposed to relate to our Father in heaven. He's our He's our
Father.
Exactly.
He loves us.
Now, it's hard for some of us to relate to because we hadn't had such wonderful fathers on earth. I did, by the way.
I didn't, but now I know because my Father's in heaven. So I have the best father ever. I'm super lucky. Yeah.
And mother, sometimes the Holy Spirit's referred to as
sometimes it's the same.
As a feminine side, comforter, the Holy Spirit.
So, Dave,
Jesus, our brother.
So tell me, how will people know that this is starting to happen? Like, what would be the signs other than the obvious? I mean,
it's so obvious now.
Yeah, tell me, what's it going to be?
It's been almost 12 months ago now, but did you know that the 4 banks that failed just about 12 months ago, SVB, a couple of the others, most people never even heard of those banks. SVB was financing a good part of Silicon Valley startups.
Oh, wow.
One of my daughters was working for a company called PadSplit. It was a startup. Actually, both of my daughters were working for a startup. Their checks got cut off because all their corporate funds were tied up in SVB. Did you know that those 4 banks that failed were a greater, larger bankruptcy default than even happened from all 200 banks that failed in 08-09?
I had no idea.
It's already happened. We're getting ready to, just a week ago. Now this is from the beast mouth itself. CEO of it was $15.7 billion real estate firm, largely CRE, the problem with commercial real estate now. And also just happened to be a Federal Reserve of New York board member, came out and said 500 more banks are about to fail. Maybe 1,000. Wait a minute. You're telling me this is insider of insiders, 500 to 1,000 more banks are going to fail. Comes out and says it. Well, Jerome Powell just came out. That was also just a few days ago. Said, we're going to lose some small banks. What they're not telling you, what they can't tell you, or it would probably happen even sooner, it's happening anyway. I mean, this is, you want a sign, okay?
In other words, it's already started.
It is definitely happening. Debt is liquidating. Bankruptcies are rising like crazy. You should actually rejoice in this. I'm not saying you're going to have a party and pop some champagne, although, I don't know.
Or you'll own nothing and be happy.
At least the exact opposite's happening. Forget Klaus Schwab, baby.
Okay.
They're not going to be able to keep up with this because God is going to spring exactly like he did to the Egyptians that were pursuing the Israelis while they were being broken out of the Egyptian slave system. And by the way, they went in there with gold and silver, a lot of it, that Abraham carried over. God told the Israelis to gather up the gold and silver, even go door to door. Actually told the women to go do this, probably so they don't seem so threatening. But they requested, and they were paid up from the Egyptian families that they served and from the neighbors. They piled them with all the gold and silver they had. Guess where this gold and silver came from? It was originally theirs 400 years sooner.
Whoa.
But it had been stolen from them when they...
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, like we discussed in our past interviews, the theft has already occurred. God is now turning the tables, literally kicking the ass out of the money changers, literally changing real money for bad money. The largest buyers of gold right now in the entire world are the central banks. They're the source of the indentured servitudes. And it's not really indentured. There's no expiration on it. Although technically 30-year mortgage. Take the CRE, for example. Even though the average CRE loan is only 5 to 7 years, technically it never gets repaid, ever. You can't. because every 5 to 7 years, the CRE investor, basically he's just a manager for the banks that loaned him the money, borrower is servant to the lender, proverb says. He has to refinance every 5 to 7 years. So there's tens of trillions of dollars worth of real estate that has to refinance right now, primarily in CRE, but it's coming to residential too. It's in multifamily now. It'll be spreading to single family. It's spreading to all debts. Auto loans, student loans, they're all evaporating because we've reached a state in the macroeconomy where there's been a decrease in the velocity of money. To put it more simpler, there's literally not enough money to keep up the interest payments. It's designed like that because you see in every downturn, this is no ordinary downturn coming up. This is an upturning. During the downturns, the banks basically end up seizing everything. In the Great Depression, so-called 1930s, Chase Bank, actually now owned by JP Morgan Chase, actually owned 40% of the real estate in California. Farmers were refusing to go to auctions to buy up their neighbors' farms in the 1930s, or if they did show up, they'd show up with a shotgun and you're not taking my brother's farm. This time they can't. They'll be crushed so fast if they try just to maintain some of these $100 million office buildings that are now going for pennies on the dollar already. In many cities, I won't say most just yet, but in most larger cities, we're seeing regular 60 to 70% auction prices off of these $100 million buildings going for $27 million bucks.
So does that mean it's a good time to invest in property, or is it a bad time?
I don't think it'll ever be a good time ever again to be a real estate speculator. And there's two reasons I say this. One is, once the debt's eliminated, who the heck are you going to palm next greater debt off to?
I love it.
Secondly, there's a huge demographic shift happening right now. We mentioned it on our intro. Mm-hmm. There's a sudden 38% spike in what would they be called? Unexpected deaths, sudden deaths.
Yeah, sudden
38%. The insurance actuators are freaking out.
A lot of people dying. Yeah.
There's 15 million, give or take, Airbnb homes just in the U.S. about to come on the market. Many people have strung together 2, 3, 50, 60, 70 Airbnb homes, and there's there's not a high enough velocity of money throughout the macroeconomy just to pay the interest, let alone maintain any hope of paying off any principal. That's long gone. It can't happen. It's literally a Ponzi that if a Ponzi doesn't continue growing, it blows up, it fails. So, and that was another awesome thing that's been on my heart lately, that the Lord is doing, that homes, I don't believe, will any longer be a point of speculative frenzy. I believe homes,
or even an investment, it'll just be a home.
Other than it's an investment in life, future generations. Because a home was never meant to be a place where, oh my God, if I hiccup for 90 days, I'm out on the street. If I injure myself or have an extended hospital visit, I'm going to be living in a box. If husband and wife, they're arguing over, oh my God, are we going to meet our mortgage this month, or are we going to eat? Are we going to feed our children? That's going to end. A home, and this is a good thing, once the debt is removed, prices they absolutely have to revert to around, give or take, between 85 and 95% of current value. So you'll be able to buy a home for 5 to 10% or almost any real estate. It'll all be fairly similar. Almost any piece of real estate will only be able to transact, buy or sell, if it's reduced to its former cash deposit value. And even that has to drop some, because it's literally not, most of the cash does not exist, never did exist, other than an instrument of debt, and will instantly vanish once the debt goes, because it was never anything more than a electronic book entry out in...
Way to steal from us and make us feel like we don't matter, or that we're slaves. It just is a slavery thing.
And then at the point of, you'll no longer live this life.
Yeah.
if you don't keep up those payments.
And then
by the way,
you'll own nothing and be happy.
And even those payments, you track where the heck those payments go. And it doesn't matter if you look at the local government, the state government, or in particular the federal government. The payments, even our taxes, they do not cover the expenses. And the bankers set it up this way on purpose. It's gotten magnitudes worse and worse, clearer and clearer. These payments are going where? Interest. Because the deeper in debt they can get us, the bigger the interest becomes. Right now, federal interest just on the 35 trillion in federal debt, and that's only the sort of upfront debt. It's really about 200 trillion if you count the unfunded liabilities. There isn't money for Social Security. There isn't money for the welfare state in the future. Just isn't there. You could tax everybody 100% today and still never be able to pay it. So we need to learn how to trust the grace of God, the Father's plan. You just have to trust Him. You need to get closer to Him. Reading the Word, understanding the Word is the best way to get started. You need to find yourself some pieces of the Bible or people that know the Bible and literally feed on that.
Yep.
Jesus said, "My words are your bread. My words are your life." He was actually called the Word.
That's right.
And to the degree that our faith is in the Word, in Jesus, in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the three are one. That's the basis of our faith. That's the basis of our hope. And He's our provider. And that works out in these everyday miracles that Jill and I regularly experience.
Exactly. And I love that because, we read a lot of books and a lot of stuff is written these days, but really the one true book is the Bible. And the original 5 books of Moses, I think, is a great start. If you want to throw yourself back into it, you'll learn a lot. And you will also learn to have faith, because that's the cornerstone, I think, of everything being human on this planet. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. And each book, it doesn't matter if it's Old Testament or New Testament, believe it or not, they all keep telling the same story over and over and over again. The saints of old, before Jesus came and laid His life down to pay the price for our debts have already been paid. That's why
right.
we trust Him. That's why when the Israelites were exiting the Egyptian slavery, which, by the way, on their way out, he turned the trap against Pharaoh, and Pharaoh drowned in the same sea that Pharaoh thought his gods opened it up for. Pharaoh was so pompous, he thought that his gods opened up the sea, and it was so that he could kill God's people.
It's so funny. That just reminds me of, let's just go to the court system right now with the Fannie Willis, who thought that she was going to get Trump, and the tables
it's happening all
totally
over.
Turned on her. And this, yes, and it's happening to everybody who's trying to go after good, righteous people. And yes, I believe that President Trump is a good and righteous person because he's been fighting for us and he's given up everything. Whatever mistakes he may have made in the past, I think he's pretty much been forgiven for that.
And it doesn't really even matter what his personal life is.
No, it
it's
doesn't.
God's anointing, God's call on him.
Yeah. And he's brave enough to answer it.
Yeah, he's obviously called of God and appointed to the offices that he is.
Not just called, but answered. I think that's a huge thing. You know,
well,
many,
obviously, if you didn't
many
answer,
are called and many
if you
do
don't
not
respond,
answer. But you have.
But it's our free will
It
to
is. That's
acknowledge
right.
or not.
That's
and
right.
we're coming to a point where if we're sitting on a fence, that's a really dangerous place to be because
Yes,
you're
don't be on
going
the
to
fence.
fall and probably on the wrong side.
That's true. You're so right.
When the blowback comes, you will fall on the wrong side if you don't decide now. Yes,
Gotta
I'm
make a
going to
choice.
love my Father. I'm going to follow him, but not because he's going to kill me. He's going to bless me.
Exactly. Exactly. You
and
know,
make a new way. Literally,
choose your
make a new
battles.
way. Bring life,
Love it.
not death. And literally, like in Psalm 91, it says 1,000 will fall at our right, 1,000 will fall at our left, 1,000 behind me. And by the way, I've lived this dozens of different ways over and over again. Goes on to say, though we're going to see these things with our eyes, if we're his, they're
And we
going to
have
affect
seen
us.
them, and we
we're
are
just going to
seeing
watch
them,
it happen.
and we're going to watch
So
it happen.
Right now, we're watching the destruction of giant institutions, banks falling, huge 100 million. I think there was a $200 million development in Memphis, of all places, owned by AT&T.
Yep, that's
sold
right.
for like $16
That's
million.
right.
There was
Even those Georgia Guidestones were struck by lightning.
yeah, they were blown up.
Even a big mural of George Floyd was struck by lightning.
Oh, that's right. Wasn't
Yeah.
that hit like twice?
Yeah.
Oh no, that was
I don't know if it was hit
there was a
twice. I know it
church
was
steeple
once.
where somebody was doing something and not good. And
The Lord
church,
is very
church
powerful.
steeple was hit twice.
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to be merciful here.
Yeah.
Give us plenty of heads up.
Yeah,
Guys, catch on.
exactly.
And so that we can have the privilege and the wealth of acknowledging these things in advance and receiving his massive blessing, putting ourselves in the position of receiving these massive blessings, whatever they are and whatever they mean to our individual lives. It's different for all of us.
But he wants this for us. This has always been the plan.
Exactly.
And the people who don't follow the plan,
You talk about his best life now. Well, it's not because of our positive thinking.
No.
It's his.
Exactly.
We just have to acknowledge it, and that's the essence of faith.
and trust it. Exactly. The essence of faith.
That's the essence of faith.
And there we have it. So I'm going to say ciao for now. Thank you guys for coming on the Beach Report. I hope that this video and all of the videos that I do, I hope it gives you a lot of calm and joy to know that you are so loved, more than you'll ever know.
Yeah.
And that God has a very big plan for us. And just, walk in faith, trust the Lord. All right, thanks so
Amen.
much, Dave. And we'll see you on the next Beach Report. Ciao for now.